All right, so this video is talking about the opposite of a surplus. So if you recall, the last video was talking about a surplus. This is where we left off. We were talking about surpluses are above equilibrium. Quantity supplied equals the quantity demand, and it's always above equilibrium. So now what's the opposite of a surplus? Well, no, it is not a surminus. I every once in a while get those jokes. What the opposite of a surplus is? A shortage. A shortage is when the quantity demand is greater than the quantity supplied. So quantity demand is greater than the quantity supplied. So this means that we have a lot of people out there that want this product, but producers aren't really willing to offer a whole lot of product out there. Okay? So what does this look like on our graph? Oh yes, there's that ice cream cone graph again. So if we had surpluses above equilibrium, so shortages must be, you guessed it, below equilibrium. So if you have not already done so on your ruler graph, then make sure that you're shading in this region below equilibrium. So shade it in. That should be your last color that you have on your graph, because you had one color for supply, one color for demand, one color for equilibrium, one color for surplus, and one color for shortage. I told you you needed 5 colors. All right, so it should look like a lovely triangle, depending upon how accurate our graph is. And you'll notice that shortages are always below equilibrium. Okay, anything below equilibrium is where the quantity demand is greater than the quantity supply. Okay, how do we know that? Well, if we pick out any point on our graph, so let's say, for example, I'm going back to my ice cream cone graph. Let's say that this ice cream cone salesperson is, I'm going to be smart, and I'm going to sell my ice cream cone for 50 cents, because everybody wants ice cream at 50 cents, right? Well, actually, that's kind of true on this graph, because look at this. At 50 cents, follow where it hits our supply and demand curve. So at 50 cents, I got one that I'm willing to sell, because hey, I got costs here that I have to pay for. I have one that I'm willing to sell, but if you follow all the way across to where it hits my demand curve, I've got 13 people that want ice cream at 50 cents. So 13 people that want ice cream. I'm only willing to offer one. So how many people are going without ice cream? Hopefully you said 12, because 13 minus 1 is 12. Okay, so what if we increase the price? So we go up to $1.50. Well, at $1.50, okay, you follow the $1.50 line all the way across to where it hits my supply line and my demand line. So here's where approximately it hits my supply line, and that's going to be when the quantity is 5. So I'm willing to offer 5 for sale. But at my demand curve, I have 9 people that want ice cream cones. So I have 9 people wanting ice cream cones, but only 5 that I'm willing to sell. So how many people aren't getting ice cream? 4, right? Because 9 minus 5 gives you 4. So just like when we talked about surpluses, we can determine the greatest shortage. So the greatest shortage is where supply and demand are the furthest apart and the furthest below equilibrium. So notice it's the widest part of my triangle down here, right? So at 50 cents, in my case, that's where my greatest shortage is, because supply and demand are the furthest apart below equilibrium. Now, just like with surpluses, I can determine how much of a shortage there is based on my graph. All I have to do is subtract supply from demand to determine the amount of shortage. So again, at 50 cents, I have 1 that is supplied and 13 that are demanded. So 13 minus 1 will give me how much I'm going to be short. Okay. I can also determine my smallest shortage. So my smallest shortage is going to be where supply and demand are closest together below equilibrium. So if you want to get technical, $2 is our equilibrium price. So anything below $2 is going to be a shortage. So if you want to get technical, the smallest shortage is going to be at $1.99. But you can't figure out how much of a shortage there is at $1.99, so I'm going to tell you to always use the points that are plotted that are closest to equilibrium. So in this case, I have $1.50, which is the points that I actually have figured out here. So $1.50 at $1.50, that's going to be my smallest shortage. And how much of a shortage there is again, I'm going to use subtract supply from demand to determine the amount of shortage. So at $1.50, I have 5 items that are offered for sale, and I have 9 people that want these items, so 9 minus 5 will give you 4. Okay, that's how you figure out the greatest and smallest shortage and how much of a shortage there is. So the last thing that I have to ask you is, how do you solve this problem? How do you get rid of a shortage? So quantity demand is greater than quantity supplied. How do you get rid of a shortage? Well, automatically people are like, oh, well, you just need to produce more. Yeah, but okay, if we're talking about 50 cents for an ice cream cone, hey, that ice cream cone salesman, you know, he has costs or she has costs. He or she has to pay for. And maybe they just can't produce at that low of a price. So what do? You got to raise the price. You got to raise your price to the point that you're trying to reach. And hey, pressure on when there's a shortage is to raise the price to what point? To equilibrium. So you're going to raise the price to reach equilibrium, or sometimes they talk about rain checks. Have you ever heard of a rain check? Well, a rain check basically is when they have run out of an item, and you've all done it before, I know you have, where you've been in the store, you're looking for a particular item, and you see the space on the shelf where it should be, and it's not there. So then what do? You may go find one of the lovely helpful workers that work there and you say, hey, you know, do you have this in the back someplace? And they say, oh, no, I'm sorry. And you're like, how do you know that yet? You didn't even look. Oh, well, because I've had lots of people request that item and I know we're out. We're not getting another shipment until Tuesday. Oh, well, see, that tells me that there's a shortage. Okay, that tells me there's a shortage because, hey, there's lots of people that are looking for it and the worker already knows that there isn't enough. Right? What do they have to do? They have to raise the price. Do they actually do that? Sometimes. But when you get a rain check, they sometimes offer you a rain check where what happens is that you can actually go and they will promise you to get you that item when it comes in. So for example, when the shipping comes in on Tuesday, you'll get that item at whatever that price is. Because oftentimes the reason they ran out is because they had a sale. So you can get a rain check. You'll get the item when it comes in and you get it at the sale price. So it's kind of a good deal. All right, that's what a shortage is. The next video is going to be taking a look at what happens when equilibrium changes. All right.